All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. We, as promised, I was going to bring in Mr. Sherman to talk about one of those loads that we got to do here recently. The load was featured in a Guess What's Under This Tarp about 2 weeks ago on our driver forum, and Miss Tina Eccles. Tina Eccles correctly guessed what was underneath the tarp, which was the horse that belongs to this statue. So you hear me talk all the time about sexy freight and the things that we get to do that, kind of set us apart. And this particular load was just that. We had a customer, Rocket Cargo, that went out to get this load moved, and they went to many different carriers that had drivers that were qualified, right? Because this was going to take a uniquely qualified driver to pull this off. And so let's kind of walk back a little bit in history. So 2020, we can all remember what was going on in 2020 with all the riots and political turmoil that was going on, and throughout the country, they were removing statues and taking historical statues down, because they were offensive to certain people, I guess. This particular load was located in downtown New York City, in the Bronx.
It was,
so a little history about the statue. So obviously it was a priceless statue. You could not, there is no way we could have a claim on this thing because it just can't be recreated, right? So in 1940, this statue was installed or put in place at the National Historical Museum of Art in New York City, or in the Bronx. In 2020, Mayor de Blasio decided that it was time to take this statue down.
Yep.
And this particular statue was depicted Teddy Roosevelt, president, the 26th president of the United States. Don't quote me on that, but and it had him on a horse along with a Native American on the side, as well as an
African tribal member
that was also on the side. And so they took this statue down, and it's been sitting in New York City at this rigger.
This was over at Ours, AUYERS, rigging company. It's off of 134th and Bruckner in the Bronx.
And so when Josh showed up, we kind of had an idea what this was and how tall it was going to be, but obviously measurements, we want to make sure that we take those measurements right on, when we get the load. So anyhow, Josh showed up, sent me a picture, and he says, "Look, man, this thing, even on a double drop, we're pushing 15.5, 15.6.
We were 15.7.5 with air, with no air, dumped all the way around, nothing in the bags, tracking trailer. We were 15.4.
So 15.4 tall, coming out of the Bronx. Wow. That would have, yes. So we loaded this thing on, it was a Friday?
I loaded on a Friday. I went down there Wednesday, dropped the trailer off, got eyes on it, put a stick on it, and called Scott, and I said, well, we ain't going to know nothing until we get this thing loaded. Figured we're going to be okay. Got there Friday morning, about 8:30 in the morning, and the customer demanded we got to put 3/4 inch plywood on the deck. My response was, sorry, sir, we can't. Because you're going to raise me up.
Right.
And his response was, it's going. Do you argue with him, or you just shut your mouth? And
customer says
100%. So I said, okay, whatever, go ahead, this ain't going to work. And we got it loaded up, put a tape on it, and that's when the phone call started.
So the phone call started, as you were saying. So we put a tape on it after we got it loaded
After
up.
we got loaded.
And we had permits in hand.
We did.
We had a pilot car or pole car and what have you in hand, ready to go. Mm-hmm. And now that we know what the height of this thing is, from the tips of the horse's ears to the ground, the pilot car decided they were going to take the route and go run the route. Is that?
No. So we used high, white, and heavy. And
that is the pilot car company?
They're the ones in the Northeast that we normally use to get our permits and do the route surveys.
Gotcha.
He called me and he said, "Hey man, are you loaded?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, what's your height?" I said, "Man, we got problems." I said, "I'm giving myself a 2-inch buffer, so I'm saying 15.9." And I said, "But if you ran the route at 15.8, then we're golden, good to go. We'll go ahead and leave Sunday." He said, "No, I'm not gonna. I'm not doing it."
So we've spent 2 weeks, 3 weeks getting this thing put together,
mm-hmm.
getting the surveys mm-hmm. done, mm-hmm. getting the routes done, mm-hmm. and at the last minute,
everything's wrong.
They pull the plug in the pilot car and the pole car, and everybody says, "Nope, we ain't gonna touch it."
This is the same company. This is high, white, and heavy. And so, Allison from the library, she said, "Have you seen the route?" I said, "No, ma'am, I have not. Do you have it?" She said, "Absolutely." So she texted to my phone. And I zoom in on my phone. I'm reading this route. "Nah, we can't go across the RFK bridge." "What do you mean?" I said, "The truss span is 14.3. We're 15.4 at a minimum." And she kind of looked at me and said, "What does that mean?" I said, "Well, we're not going to be on Channel 10 national news. That ain't happening." And so I called Scott. And I said, "Hey, man, we got some issues." I said, "What's going on?" And the original plan was, can you make it back to Texas and back before the contract expires to get this thing loaded on a load deck? I said, "Absolutely." So we start making plans with that.
Now, to go down to Texas was to get a trailer that would be a little bit lower.
It would have been a foot lower.
Okay.
So it sits about that high off the ground. So we're going to borrow that from Lone Star. So we're getting all that set up, getting ready to do that. And then the rigger drops it, says, and I quote, "Contractually, we're done. That thing is loaded. We're done."
So now we've got a pilot car, pole car that's going to refuse to move you out of the Bronx.
Yeah, they're not even here yet. This is all over the phone.
Right. So they're saying they're not taking you out of the Bronx.
100%.
Now that it's on our deck, the rigging company is saying, "Get the hell out of my yard because we fulfilled our edge of the contract and we're not going to allow you to sit here in our yard while we figure this thing out."
In a little bit nicer way, but yeah.
And so, okay, wow. So as I recall, you found a dead end street.
Yeah, we came out of the lot, which was a nightmare within itself, trying to get up around cars. We went right again, and backed up down a dead end street.
Backed up down a dead end street and sitting there up against the fence, waiting for whatever it is that we got to do.
Waiting for a permit, waiting to find a route. So after all this happened, when I overheard him, and so I immediately called Scott. I told the customer, "Excuse me for a second, I got to make a phone call." And I called Scott and I told him what they did. But before I called Scott, I called Andrew at Elite Motor Carriers out of New York, and those guys I like. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Hey, man,
this is a pilot car company."
Pilot car company. They do permits and whatnot up Northeast. And I called him and I said, "Hey, man, I need a no BS assessment. Can you get me out of here at this height with the permit?" And he said, "Yes, I can like the route." And I said, "Okay." So then I called Scott and I said, "Hey, man, this is what we're up against. We have two options here. We can either as a company as a whole have an egg on our face, or we can turn, which is not an option with me."
Right.
I said, "Or we can get Elite involved and we can make this happen." Scott's exact response was, "I'm calling them now." And
calling Elite.
Calling Elite. And so at that point, we knew we were scrambling for time because we have to be out of there by the 31st, no later, but we're already off property. I didn't want to sit back into a dead end street off of 34th and Locust for days and days and days and days on end. So Elite comes down. we run the route. A lot of it was nope, can't make these turns. Then we finally found some more that we could make, and permit came through, and we set a date for movement of Sunday night, which would have been, was Sunday Halloween? It was Halloween night.
It was Halloween night.
So it was Halloween night because we moved.
It was Monday night.
Yeah, we moved. No, let me rephrase it. We moved the 30th, 11:47 p.m. That Sunday is when we started movement, and it turned into Halloween. Which I seen parts of the boroughs that I don't ever want to see again.
So saying that, obviously there's some trade secrets and some things that went on to get us out of downtown New York City that we just won't talk about.
Yep.
There's might have been an off ramp that we went down the wrong direction so that we could get around a bridge and some other things that went on down there.
To say the least, but to make sure that everybody understands, we did it all legally, all safely.
And you had escorts.
We had escorts. One of I think the most memorable parts of that was going through downtown Manhattan, through the back end of a police station, through their parking lot, because there's a bridge right here and a light we couldn't clear. So we go through their parking lot, snake through, come back around, come next light, split them. And at this point, we're in downtown Manhattan. And I'm on the radio and I said, Andrew, you got to be crapping me right now. He says, it gets worse.
Just keep following.
Just keep following. So we went through downtown, come through, got back up on the GW. And I said, dude, we can't clear these there's basically the pre-pass sensors.
Oh, yeah.
I said, we can't clear those. He said, that's fine. Go down the bus slip. Do what? So we come down the bus slip, and there's a get-off ramp right here. I said, I can't make that. So we come up to a get-on ramp, and I'm looking at it, and I look over, and I jump out, set the brakes, got her chase behind me, and I go walk up the ramp, see if I can make it. Well, to make this ramp is what we call a 30 by 30 turn. So I got to get all the way over here on the K-rail, come up, split the curb, jack it back hard right, come up on the K-rail again on this side, not on it, but actually ride it. And so you turn 30 this way, 30 this way, coming off a get-on ramp, or a get-on ramp. Come back across just to make the next turn. We started going through Fort Lee, New Jersey. I'm talking residentials. I'm talking missing lights and power lines. And
now, mind you, when this statue was torn down or taken down from in front of the museum, the folks, de Blasio, some of the other folks that were involved in that, basically stated that this statue was to be destroyed.
So what I got from Mark, who was my point of contact in North Dakota, the one that set all this up, the BLM or whoever they were that was demanding this be destroyed, his response to me was that they were supposed to put that on a barge out in the ocean and drop it off.
Throw it off,
and because it is racial. Well, kind of back up a little bit. If you zoom in on the pictures of the statue, if you look at it up close, the Native American has a rifle. Huh. The African tribal member, and I thought it was a black slave because it looked like he was chained up.
Yeah,
that's not the case. He's an actual African tribal member, has a rifle. Wow. So if you know, why are we doing this?
Right. So all right. So this statue is heading to the Teddy Roosevelt Presidential Library in Mendora, North Dakota. And you're in New York City, and they got you heading east.
Mm-hmm. No.
East out of you went over to Jersey.
Yeah. So we were going west.
West. I'm sorry. Okay. And so you're going the wrong direction. Mm-hmm. So you can get out of town. Mm-hmm. Right. We finally, after 10 hours.
89 miles, 6.5 hours.
Okay, then. get out of New York City and get on to our route. Mm-hmm. Wow. Mind you, there is no replacement. It can't be repaired. If something gets hit, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
So, piece of history, obviously.
100%.
And they called around and remember, I remember a conversation we had. There were several trucking companies that they called to try and make this happen.
So,
and they refused.
They refused. Mark said that they called Belger Crane and Rigging and numerous other companies. Belger Crane and Rigging themselves went to New York to look at it, and their response was, "Nope, we're not touching it." Period. He said so. They gave him five numbers, and they said, and our name came up.
Smokey
Point's name came up in that category, and said, and after it was all said and done, we double back to you guys.
Wow. So took a wow. So obviously it's you gotta have the equipment.
Correct.
You gotta have the drivers.
Correct.
The skill level drivers that can do this. Wow. But talking about the ultimate piece of sexy freight.
It was, and back up real quick. It's not just about the driver though. The back end staff, Scott Meredith.
Oh, sure.
Andrew is elite, even downright to Chubby. Because trust when I tell you this, I'm good at what I do, don't get me wrong. But this piece right here, you see all this gray in the beard right here? I think I gained about 50 more hair. And so it was constant phone calls to Scott and Chubby. Hey, man, how would you do this? I need to get an idea of how they would tie this down because there's really no place to tie it down.
No.
So I guess what I'm saying is even on the back end, I mean, I can do it, but there's so many more moving parts in here.
Sure,
on the back end,
sure. So. And you got to be able to permit it. You got to be able to legally get that thing out of there.
100%.
Tall loads are difficult to begin with, but tall loads that tall coming out of the burrows, that's insane, man. I know you were stressed because you and I talked numerous times throughout that entire trip. So, Josh, so fast forward, then we get on up into North Dakota, and it's snowing.
Yeah. So we got to Dickinson. I pulled in about 7:00 Friday night.
Yeah.
And I was trying like hell, begging these people, trying to sweet talk $1 a piece to come in and unload me out of my pocket, no problem. Sorry, man, we're not coming in until Monday. Well, then the weather starts changing.
Yeah.
And it went from mid-40s to 30s to that day. It was 16 degrees. No, it was 12 degrees when I woke up. The high was 16. And they came and got me at 8, and we went over to unload. And I said, where we unload this at? It's outside. And I just kind of, and then they come back and said, how tall is that? And I said, with no air, it's 15.5. Can you get in that door right there? I said, yeah. So we double back around, unload it inside the building. Yeah, that picture's not up. But we unloaded, untarped, got everything rolled up. That right there, we were inside there. And it was nice and warm. And then we come outside, and we got snow blowing everywhere. And I see there's the ice in the beer.
The gray.
And they yeah, it was a long, tedious process.
That was a week long.
Yeah, it took
a week and a half to move that thing out of the burrows and into North.
Yeah, it took about 5 days. We should have got it delivered Friday morning was the plan, but Tuesday morning I woke up and we were socked in by fog, and I'm talking I couldn't see a quarter of my head.
Yeah.
You know, I will tell you, any other time, if it wouldn't have been Teddy, would have been moving. But being that you have that constant reminder that, man, you take the head of Teddy off or his horse, you're screwed. You know, like there's no
horse without ears.
100%. I mean, there's no coming back from it. You know, so you know, at this point of it, this was for me. This is one of the more memorable of my career. I mean, I've been doing superloads 13, 14 years now.
Right.
And you know, yeah, the aircraft stuff's cool, and I mean, hey, I've hauled that. That's great. But who can say to their kids and their grandkids, I hauled that.
I hauled Teddy Roosevelt.
100%.
Right.
And so for me, it was a pride issue.
Sure.
So on top of, instead of, anybody that knows me, Josh is a hothead. And Josh likes to lose his crap pretty quick. But when we loaded that, I knew that I had to be on, put my A game on. This wasn't just some, I'm mad today, I'm going to throw a fit and, cuss and scream and it's going to be okay. This could be a bigger deal, not only for myself, but Smokey Point.
Sure.
So
shows what we can do.
100%. And a lot of us want to see bigger, badder freight, the ones that are qualified.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew that I would have to conduct myself in a manner to really make us shine because, I ride for the brand. I mean, I love the company. I love what we do. Yes, there's days that I'm less than happy. Sure. Not here, but just happy with what's going on. But I knew this was my chance to shine and really show not only what I can do, but what the company can do as a whole.
Sure.
So it was the bigger picture of we have to shine. It's not just my name. It's Cliff Michael's name. It's Kyle Fitzgerald's name. It's Scott's name. It's Chubby's name. Sure. Any of the main players that are in this OD game, on top of Smokey Point's name. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So why not show them what we can do? And that's what we did. And we hit that one. We knocked that one out of the park.
Knocked it out of the park. Grand slam.
100%. The Mark, he was totally impressed. He said, excuse me, not Mark. Jay over at Marshall's, he was my point of contact that actually came and loaded it. His response when I got loaded, he said, I knew you were good, but I know you were that good. And I said, well, it's all about team effort. I mean, without Scott, without Chubby, without everybody in the background getting this going, I'm one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
But I would have, payroll don't hold me to this, but I would have done it for free. Not now. But it was just a memorable experience.
That's awesome. It's we get an opportunity around here every now and then to haul some pretty cool, again, sexy freight, some stuff that nobody else in this country can do.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Or wants to do.
Right.
Right. I mean, because they could do it. Yeah, that other trucking company could probably do it and make it happen, but do you want to take that risk?
Well, and
the risk of something happening, and that kind of claim would be just a nightmare.
Well, and I think with a lot of the other companies, the risk outweighed the reward.
Sure.
Do I think the company's holding money? Sure. I don't think we would have done it cheap.
No.
But Scott said it so well. He said, "There's a couple guys on my board." He said, "You and Mark Huffman are ones that I know that can get it done." I don't think it's not the fact that nobody else can do it, but these are people that tried, true, and proven that when it gets tough, that's when we get better.
So that brings me to my last question. I want to debunk the little rumor here. So, rumor amongst the fleet is that if you're hauling over dimensional, you can't make your numbers.
Travis, you see my numbers pretty much every month.
Right.
This is what I would say. I left for 3 months, but all in all, almost 2 years. I would say from the time I started here in 10 months before I left last time, I did 6 figures.
You have not missed.
I have not missed. I haven't, and even then, when we started this new program, I've never missed my numbers. So can you make money being OD? Absolutely. Can you still make miles and get bonuses? I do. And it's all legal. I think the bigger picture is how much home time are you going to take? And that's the big equation with me is, yes, doing OD, you can make money and you can make a lot of it. OD is not for everybody.
Right.
You either love it and you're great at it, or you hate it. Or with me, it's a curse for me because I'm good at it. And there's times I just, like when I came here, remember we had a discussion. I didn't want no part of OD. And then you walked in and you seen those permits and you went back and I told Davenport, God, did I take them off? No. And then you come back, I talked to Scott, you're going to go to Wichita. I'm glad I came back to OD. But to go back to the question, can you make money, make your miles? Yeah. But if you have to only do 400 miles a day every day and you think you're going to make money, you are sorely mistaken.
Right.
If
Got to take advantage of when you can move.
absolutely know when you can move, take advantage of it. My biggest ace in the hole is split sleeper.
Utilizing the split sleeper.
Go on to sleeper or even off duty for 3.5 hours. Once you click back on, it'll tell you can't drive past this time. And if you look at your clock and you shut down within that time, it's going to say 3.5 hours for rest break. That means you already got 3.5 hours banked
on your 10.
On your 10. So then you only got to go lay down 7 hours, 6.5 hours, whatever the numbers are. You lay down for that time, set your clock, you get your butt up, and you go to work. I don't care if it's 11 o'clock at night and you got to drive all night. That is how you make miles. That is how you make money. On-time deliveries, on-time appointments, and you get your ass a sleeper. Don't sit up all night and watch TV. Hey, I like TV like everybody else. First 48 is my favorite show. But you just work.
Just gotta
go. You just gotta work.
Well, Josh, again, thank you. Thank you for showing what SPD can do. Right. Thank you for being the Josh Sherman that you are. And thank you for showing what SPD can do.
Absolutely.
Right. And as you said, I'm sure that this is just one of many moves that this helps to open up doors that may not have been able to open before. So again, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thanks for doing what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And continue to haul that sexy freight.
Absolutely.
All right, buddy.
All right, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bet.